You're listening to the UnderGunned Productions podcast, Indie and Proud, taking home recording to a whole new level. All things cool, gear, beer, production tips and tricks, and a whole lot of other cool shit. Interviews with your favorite members of the UnderGunned team, and some surprise special guests. So sit back and enjoy the podcast.
Hell yeah, and good day, y'all. Jeremiah here, and I'd like to thank you guys for tuning into the UnderGunned Productions podcast. Over the next few months, I'm going to be interviewing several different freelancers and talking a lot about, of course, gear, beer, and all kinds of other cool shit, but also really diving into how us as home indie artists can actually start making a living with our music and our production skills in today's music world. And today on the line, I have a phenomenal kick-ass drummer who's just tearing up the freelance scene. This kid went to Berkeley, and I thought he was at least 30, but today he told me, oh, I'm only 23, and I'm like, dude, you're so far ahead of the game, you don't even know, man. He's tracked drums on hundreds and hundreds of songs, has several of his own recording projects on the go. He's got a YouTube channel where he's throwing up performances that are just so over the top, blazing metal, just full out, no holds barred drumming. And I've hired him for several of my own tracks now for our up and coming Dual Dynasty album, just because this kid is bringing the heat. So here's a huge warm welcome for James Knoerl. So I'm live on the line here with James Knoerl. Is that how you pronounce your last name there?
Holy cow, yeah, you pronounced it right.
Only because I seen you say it in one of your videos there.
Oh, okay, there we go. All right.
So James Knoerl, and you're residing in Boston, right?
Yep.
And James is an online drummer, freelancer who's just amazing, slays everything I've ever sent his way, and I've seen a bunch of his stuff on YouTube is just off the charts. So James is kind enough to answer a few questions for me today, and we can dig into his work process and a little bit how he rolls with everything. So how's it going, James?
It's going well. A little bit sweaty. It's pretty hot in Boston, so kind of just like hunkering in my studio. Got the AC on now because I'm not recording, but once I do, it's gonna get kind of muggy in here again. But
good way to keep you in shape, though, eh? Yeah.
All part of the day, I guess. Yeah.
So you want to just share a little of your history, like when you first got into music?
Yeah. So I've been playing drums since I was 6. I grew up in a small town in Michigan called Tustin, Michigan. It's like actually considered a village. It's not even like a city. So I had a drum teacher growing up who influenced me a lot to pursue music full time. He ended up going to Berkeley when I was about like 10. So that's kind of how I figured out about going to music school. And then after that, I went to Berkeley myself in 2011. And I graduated 2015, and I've just been playing drums and doing all sorts of music-related things ever since. It's kind of just been a whirlwind of different things. I played with a couple cover wedding bands for a while, did a lot of original bands. I taught music at a Boys and Girls Club for inner city kids, made a hip-hop album there. Most recently, I just did a reenactment project in Cambridge where I dressed up as a colonial snare drummer and marched around Cambridge every day. That was super cool. So it's just like just been doing a lot of different music things, whatever I can really get my hands on. I'm not really one for pigeonholing myself to doing just one thing. So kind of just been doing everything.
No, it's super interesting. I know it's fun. I got short attention span myself, so I'm always trying to dabble into different genres, different bands, different recording projects or whatnot.
Yeah, I feel like, when, you can do the same thing, because I obviously I like certain things more than others, but I feel like every time you step away from doing one thing and going to do something else, when you come back, I just feel like you have a different perspective that can help you do that job more effectively, or just a little bit different. So that way it's not, you just cranking out the same stuff every time, So I feel like it's, especially for me, it keeps it fresh, which keeps, my clients, happy with what I'm doing, because I'm always, changing it up in a way that's productive, as opposed to just like, oh, this is the 10th track I've sent him. He sounds uninspired at this point. I never want that to be something that happens. So me doing all these different things kind of helps me, stay active in the music community and do a bunch of different stuff that, influences me for a bunch of different ways. Like I'm doing a death metal album right now, and I haven't listened to any death metal the entire time I've been tracking. I've just been listening to like movie soundtracks and jazz, and that in doing that has allowed me to bring a perspective to like the death metal songs that I don't think would be in there otherwise, because I would just be listening to Black Dahlia Murder and stuff and just be like, oh, I'm just gonna blast for 4 minutes and that will suffice, because that would be the criteria that I'd be basing that entire record off of. So I think it's beneficial to move around there and have a short attention span, like you said.
Yeah, no, it helps you grow too when you're learning different genres or playing different genres, and then when you come back to your favorite genre that you love, you're bringing a little bit of that back every time you go out.
Yeah. Also, lately it's been so amazing to me how many different ways you can be employed as a musician, right? Like, for a long time I was only doing cover bands and like weddings. And after you do that for a while, you're like, all right, this is it. Like, weddings and cover bands is the way to make money as a musician. And then I started playing with a church band, and like the way a church band operates is so different from a cover band. And then I started doing this art project through Cambridge, and the way artists work is completely different from musicians. Everyone's brain works differently. So it's really funny just to see how many different avenues, you can make a living in music, and they're all extremely unique in the music you're playing, the kind of people you're working with, the way you're preparing for the gigs and stuff like that. It's just really interesting to me. That's another reason why I like doing a million different things.
No, it's great to hear. I never realized you had such a wide array of things going on, right? Like when I watch your YouTube videos, I think, oh, this guy's a metalhead. How some metalheads are just metal or nothing.
Yeah.
But that's great to hear you've actually widened out. And like you said before, too, now that you've branched yourself out, you are opening more employment opportunities. And that's a great way of expanding your horizon, so to speak, eh?
Yeah, no, it's totally. And I think, yeah, it's funny you mentioned the metal thing, because, I could post like all the jazz and church music and all that stuff on my YouTube channel, and I don't know how it would go, because people would just be like, yo, bring back the blast beats, where's the breakdowns, But I think YouTube is a really good avenue for me because all that metal stuff is very technically challenging, and I think that my subscriber base on YouTube is very interested in the technical aspects of my playing, and not so much maybe if I were to, I could post like 30 videos of me playing singer-songwriter stuff, but I don't know if it'd be worth my time to edit the videos, and I don't think anyone would really be interested in it on my subscriber base anyways.
Yeah, no, I totally hear you, because you kind of built that brand, right?
Yeah.
And again, metalheads, some of them are a little bit more closed-minded than the average guy, so as soon as you post that jazz thing, they're going to be like, what the fuck, right? But the
interesting thing is that if you go way back into my YouTube like video library, whatever it's called, there's a lot of videos I have on there from like 2013, 2012, where I was playing a lot of recording sessions at Berkeley, and I played drums at Carnival. And those are the videos that I use to, market myself for, like cover bands and like session gigs and stuff. Be like, hey, check it out. This is me, playing Pocket for 20 minutes. Like, those are the videos that get you gigs, not the, the check out my blast beats at 400 beats per minute. Like, no, you know what I mean? Like, that stuff's sick.
Well, I know I got a huge kick out of the last Cannibal Corpse track you posted, man. I was just like, now that shit is sick.
Yeah.
Because metal is an art, and it's almost like an athletic form to be able to pull that off on drums. Is
pretty much 90% of the stuff that I post on YouTube has some sort of kind of killing two birds with one stone kind of thing going on. So like the reason all these Cannibal Corpse videos I'm posting is because I got asked to do a Cannibal Corpse tribute show here in Boston. So like all the songs that I'm posting are all songs that we're doing for that set. And so like I'll record it and then send everyone in the band like just a drum track to practice to for the rehearsals for the show. So that way, you know, I'm helping everyone out because, you know, trying to get 5 people in a room to rehearse is like hilariously difficult, right? So if I can just give someone a recording of my drum part, how I'm going to play it, you know, that will help everyone move along faster if they already have that information at their disposal. And, you know, if I already put in the work to record the drum audio for them, I might as well film it and put it up on the internet. So that's kind of how that works. And I have like a million examples of that for stuff I put on YouTube. Like just if I'm going to, you know, record something for someone that is a cover tune, I might as well film it as well and put it on the internet. Just always good practice, right?
Yeah, it's a good way of getting things out there. Another good question I got is, now is your YouTube possibly generating you clientele for your freelancing?
Absolutely. Yeah. Which is hilarious because we were just talking about the pigeonholing metal thing. So it's like, I'm trying to think of like, I did a couple records last year and early this year that have been from, you know, people being like, yo, I saw your Thy Art Is Murder cover or, you know, whatever. And they'll be like, yo, can you do that on my album? And like stuff like that. So it has come up a lot, which is always really cool because, you know, for me, YouTube is just for fun. I've never been like, I'm going to make videos on YouTube and that's how I'm going to like make my living. I just like doing it for fun. I don't think I'm very talented with making videos or anything like that. But I think just, you know, doing the drumming thing, and if it helps out that I can, you know, do something else with the video, like send it to a bandmate for stuff like that. And then if it gets me a gig down the line, sweet, you know?
Yeah, a little extra marketing you get back from it, yeah.
So I have gotten a couple gigs this year through YouTube, and yeah, all of them I've already gotten finished up. I tend to work like stupidly fast just because the volume of work that I'm doing per month is kind of hilarious. So I just tend to just hunker down and pretty much 12-hour days every day, just in the studio recording drums for people, you know, and I want to make sure that I, you know, give everyone quality work, right? So I'll, you know, sit on it for a day and then come back. If I need to like re-record something, you know, think this part could be better, I'll do that. But I just think as long as I'm keeping consistent, that way everyone gets quality work, it's good for everyone.
Yeah, and that's how I find you do build your clientele base too. They're like happy they're going to come back.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Because even myself, over the years, I've hired quite a few different drummers for different tracks, and there's just a handful that I actually go back to, right? And it's like, yeah, this guy nailed it last time.
Yeah, well, consistency is key. That's like the whole thing, right? Just like being consistent, you know, the whole key, I think.
Yeah, and bringing in that extra something original too, right? Because it's
yeah, absolutely.
Because that's, now I know your style. Well, I guess I didn't fully know your style when you're talking about your jazz and other little bit of music history in the past there. But but anytime I got a track that's like, oh, this has got James's name on it for sure, right? And I'm sure a lot of other people think the same way. It's
that's awesome.
But now I think I'm gonna have to send you a jazz track just for fun.
Oh, please do, man. I love that stuff. I toured Europe with a jazz band when I was like 15, and that was like the last time I played jazz. Like, you know, we did 2 full sets of jazz tunes every night, and like, you know, we did Germany, France, Norway, Denmark, and that was a blast. And then literally right after I got home from that, I went on tour with a metal band, and I was like, that was the last time I did anything jazz. So, but I wish people would send me more jazz stuff. That's why maybe I need to start posting more jazz videos on the internet. Just so I actually, that's funny you mentioned that. I just did like a pseudo jazz rock record that came out last week. And that was like the most fun I had recording a record last year, just because it was so out in left field for me, but that was a great time.
Right. Like, I'm a big fan of Cherry Poppin' Daddies. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but that's kind of...
Oh, my God. Yeah. Zoot Suit Riot, man.
Yeah. That big band thing with a little bit of Brian Setzer kind of jazz in there, but they got enough old 40s and early 50s in there, but it's fused with today's. I know they're probably 10 to 20 years old now. It's been a while since that album came out. First time I heard that, you just want to groove, but it's still making your head bang almost as you're listening to some rock, right? And...
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's so funny you mentioned that. That was like one of my first like big band jazz records when I was a tiny little kid before I even, delved into like Max Roach and Tony Williams and stuff. It was Cherry Pop and Daddies.
It's good stuff, man. There's no denying it.
That's awesome.
So going back to you starting at 6, obviously that kind of explains your phenomenal chops because you got a good grasp on things when you're earlier. But I'm a little curious about Berkeley. I hear a lot of people, and some of the other session players I've worked with also attended Berkeley. And if you want to just touch on that a bit, would be great.
Yeah, it's a great place.
When you ended up leaving and you're finished, what kind of degree did you walk away with?
I walked away with a drum set performance degree, and I started in 2011, and I went for 5 semesters straight, and then I was just like super burnt out, like ready to explode. So I got a job. I was doing every audition that came through, because the thing about Berkeley is everyone knows about it, right? So if there's any big corporate music thing that needs players, where are they going to go? They're going to come to Berkeley, right? So, every semester, Carnival rolls through, Holland America rolls through, Disney rolls through, Cedar Point. Pretty much every large place that has some sort of music aspect to their thing, they come through Berkeley and audition people, right? So I auditioned for Carnival, and he told me that day that I had a job. So I was like, okay. So I left Boston that May, and then I was in Florida in June, and I was on a ship until Thanksgiving, and then I came back that winter. But I just needed like a break, man, because Berkeley's intense. Like Berkeley is intense, especially because you can go to Berkeley and you can get all A's and you can be a class superstar, and people that teach at Berkeley would tell you this. I would be impressed if you get work, because it's not what you put in during school that counts at Berkeley. It's what you put in, after school. Like, who are you networking with? Who are you playing with? Who are you, what are you shedding that isn't class material? Like all that stuff. So, when I was at Berkeley, before I went to Carnival and after I came back from Carnival, it was a completely different mindset, because before I was just trying to, like get good grades, and, I was writing with a couple of bands and stuff. But when I came back, I was like, all right, you get that 6-month taste of what the real music industry is like. And you're like, all right, now I know what I got to do when I come back. So the last 3 semesters at Berkeley, I hustled super hard, but everyone, especially in the drum faculty, oh my gosh, man, they're crazy talented, and all they want to do is help you out. Like, I went to office hours every week. I took advantage of literally every, little thing I could, and definitely feel like I excelled, or like started to, succeed at a higher level than I couldn't have possibly imagined had I not gone to that school. So, and then funny thing enough is I actually just got done teaching. Well, not teaching. I was playing for Victor Wooten's bass camp the last 3 days.
Wow.
So to go back to Berkeley and just like, see all these, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed kids who are, just, these are high schoolers. So, they're thinking about going to Berkeley, and they're, this is their first experience, and you just see them walking around. They're like, holy crap, like this place exists. Like this place is insane. And then you just get to be like, yep, it is. It's literally the craziest place on earth. It's literally summer camp for 4 years, and all you get to do is talk about whatever band you want and just gush over anything, because I guarantee you there's a group of 20 other people that will gush about it with you, and it's ridiculous.
Great way to find like-minded people too, obviously, right? Because
well, yeah, you hear stories about all these different bands that came from Berkeley, Dream Theater, John Mayer. It's not a uncommon thing. Native Construct is a band that I went to school with and I toured with. They're from Berkeley. Arch Echo, they just put out a record. Most of those dudes are from Berkeley. Chronologist from Berkeley. What's her name? Betty Who, she's from Berkeley. So a lot of people like,
So it does give you an advantage having like your theory dialed in and like all the techniques that you said, learning from your teachers is the best thing. You just kind of milk as much as you can from them.
yeah, well, the thing that Berkeley did for me that I could feel a lot of people could say too is it gave you like some sort of like it helped you through the growing pains of figuring out how to make a successful workflow for yourself, right? You know, it gives you all the tools. Like they teach you all the theory, they teach you all the harmony, they teach you everything you'd ever possibly need to know. But I took 4 years of ear training and I probably only use 40% of what I learned in ear training. And that's not because Berkeley is bad at teaching it. It's just because I don't need to know how to like dissect, crazy polychords on my day to day. For me, I need to know how to transcribe rhythms really fast. I need to know how to transcribe time signatures really fast, tempos really fast. And Berkeley taught me how to do all those things. So I feel like Berkeley is really great at giving you all the tools to make you successful in no matter what you're doing, right? Because it throws everything at you. And because of that, you don't sleep a lot and you just talk about music for 4 years and it's amazing.
Just like cramming, right? But the cramming never ends until you finally say, okay, I'm done. And then you're into the real world.
And then you cram more.
Yeah, because it's just beginning then. Right?
Yeah, right. Well, Berkeley teaches you how to work at an insanely high rate with no time, right? Berkeley teaches you how to actually work in the music industry because I've never had like gigs in the real world where everything goes according to plan, right? You'll get ready to do a show and be like, all right, yeah, we got all the songs prepared. And then the MD the night before is like, oh, just kidding. I want to add 3 more songs. And you're going to play 3 more songs the next night and you're never going to rehearse. And people at Berkeley used to do that to me all the time. So I am already comfortable in that situation, right? Thank you, Berkeley.
Prepared for the worst. No, that's great. That inspires me to want to even look further into it. So.
Yeah. It's awesome. Berkeley has some online courses too that I've had some friends that have taken them and they say they're just as good. So, but the thing about Berkeley is the networking at the school. That's the one thing that Berkeley Online will never have on the school because it's not at the school, right? Because you want to network with all these people. You want to meet them. You want to play with them. You want to, go to their shows and you want to have a career with the people you go to school with. Like I still work with people I went to school with 2 years ago, like I'm sure there's people that graduated Berkeley 40 years ago that still work with the people that went to Berkeley 40 years ago, like you're trying to build long-lasting working relationships with people you go to school with there. So,
and that's the most important thing in the music biz too, is those working relationships that you build and keep going throughout, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And then say your buddy you've been jamming with for years meets someone, he's like, in his band needs a drummer or whatever, a session guy. It's like, oh, I know the guy, and he calls you, right? And
yeah. And I always think that that's really crazy how that stuff happens. Like the Victor Wooten thing that happened this weekend. Man, I was in bed a Tuesday morning watching BoJack Horseman or something. I had just woken up, and my buddy who works at the bass department at Berkeley, he just texted me and he's like, hey, you want to play with me at Victor's bass camp for 3 days? And I'm like, what? It's almost surreal sometimes. Like you get these gigs and it's just like, how did that happen? You know what I mean? Like, and then you go and you like go back in the, timeline of events and it's like, wow, this took like all these things that needed to happen for this one thing to happen. It's absolutely blows my mind every day.
Yeah, no, just the synchronicity of everything we've done, how it gets us to where we are now, right? And so that's why sometimes you see one little opportunity and you're like, nah, I'm going to pass on that. And then all of a sudden, that could have been the opportunity that led to the next opportunity. That's why it's important to seize every opportunity.
Absolutely, yeah. I think the real thing is just like, being consistent because, that, just for example, that Vic thing, I took a class with that guy who texted me to give me that gig 3 years ago. And I did really well in that class. So I took another class with him and I did really well in that one again. And then after I graduated, I started playing with him and I was, I was really prepared for everything that I did with him then. So then, the next thing. So it took 3 years to get to that point. And I think I was just really consistent. So since I ended up getting to the point where he asked me to do that gig because he was like, James is dependable. He's going to do exactly what I need him to do. He's the guy, So I think that's just consistency.
Yeah, reliability, consistency, they're all good business traits and characteristic traits to have to take what you want to do further.
Yeah, for sure.
No, that was definitely wicked. Thanks for sharing that about Berkeley there.
Yeah, no problem. I could talk about Berkeley all day, man. Every time I go back there, because I go back there to play senior recitals and to do, those camps and stuff, and I'm just like, and I only live a mile away from Berkeley, but I never have a reason to go down there. But whenever I do, I literally every time, my girlfriend will text me, she'll be like, how did the thing at Berkeley go today? And I'm just like, dude, I want to go back to school so bad.
How would you ever feel about teaching? That might be a possible career path for you. It's
Oh man, well I teach now. I teach like 25 to 30 hours a week.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So and I love it, man. Teaching's great because who doesn't love talking about drums and music all day? Like that must be a joke, right? To like, to actually be able to, make a living talking about music all day. Man, that's like disgusting. It's great, yeah. So, but I mean, I don't have the credentials at my point in my life where I'd feel comfortable teaching at Berkeley, but maybe down the line I would love to do it. Everyone there is like ridiculous, not just the teachers, but the students. Some of those students are ridiculous. Like they're so good.
Years and years of experience.
Oh yeah.
Now I think it'd be more fun applying your skills to like performing live and writing with bands and et cetera, right? But at some point in your life, it's like, all right, I've kind of done that. But it sounds like that's already a big part of your work circle. So you've already kind of gone there.
Yeah. Well, it's just a part of, the variety we were talking about earlier, like not even just playing different things, doing different things in the music community, right? Like teaching, playing shows, recording, doing weird marching art pieces and, like all this weird stuff.
No, the full circle. No, it takes a lot to make a living as an artist. Like, I have lots of friends who dabble and I have a few friends who are doing it full out. And to give it your all and to make a living at it, you got to give it your all. You got to wake up and be looking for your next job. Like just like you said, you're talking about how many hours you put in a week, right? And it's the only way to really do it and stay on top of your game and keep that ball rolling.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I also put in that many hours because I think it's hilarious that I actually make music my living. Like, I think it's hilarious. Like how many, I talk to my friends from, high school and stuff, and they're like, yeah, man, I'm so excited for this work week to be over or something. And I'm just like, dude, I'm going to go play drums for 12 hours today and I'm going to be sweaty and gross and it's going to be awesome. Like, you know what I mean? Like the conversation between like someone who loves their job, which I love everything I do, and someone who, doesn't is so different. And it's just like, I'm never like waiting for, 8:00 to be here every night and be like, oh, I can't wait to go home and like play video games or what. I don't know what like regular people do, but like I would be playing drums even if I wasn't getting paid for it. You know what I mean? So
no, it's like you're looking at the clock, and when you're having a good day doing what you love, you look at the clock and it's like, holy fuck, it's already 8:00. I haven't even had dinner yet, right? It's
yeah. You're like, oh man. It's like the thing when you're a little kid and your mom wakes up for school and you're like, oh, 5 more minutes of sleeping. It's like, oh, 5 more hours of drums, please. That's how I feel like. I feel like instead of my mom telling me, it's my body telling me, all right, James, you got to go home and like sleep. We can't do anymore.
Yeah, no, I've had a couple weeks where the mixes just kept rolling in, and I did eventually run myself into the ground, right? And then you're making poor decisions because you're tired, your ears are burnt, but you're just trying to stay on top of your game, right?
Yep. Oh yeah, your ears are screwed. Yeah, I had the same thing 2 days ago. I just didn't do anything with him for 2 days, and then I came back and I was like, whoa. And then you go to a session back up like from 3 hours before you're getting tired, and you're like, that sounds way better.
Yeah, no, I am a strong believer everything needs fresh ears, especially I couldn't imagine playing drums for that many hours a day because your ears are taking a bashing and a half, right? It's not quite as bad as mixing, but...
Well, I mean, I only have one eardrum. I was born with only one eardrum, so I take super care of my ear. I have like molds and everything, so I can't remember how many decibels they cut, but they cut a lot of decibels. So I don't play around with that stuff at all. As soon as my ears are like, I mean, I have the molds in, and then I don't have the volume up very loud, like going into my ears. So I don't play around with that stuff at all.
So you're actually deaf in one ear then?
I don't even have an eardrum in my right ear, actually. So,
oh wow,
yeah,
that's fascinating that you've made your music career go where you've gone like that.
Yeah. It's funny because I've been doing a disgusting amount of mixing lately too. So, and that's like a thing I kind of like bring it up to clients, and then like I'll send them a mix, and they'll be like, "Wait, what? How did you do this?" And I'm like, I just like mixed it and then try to make it sound cool, and then they were like, "Dude, it sounds sick, but you only have one eardrum?" I'm like, "Yeah."
No, that is amazing.
I kind of just like don't question it at this point, you know, like it just works.
So can we just talk about this a little bit then? So when you're mixing, you obviously do everything in mono to start your mix?
No. So what I do is I have I'm deaf in my right ear. So I have my speakers on the left side of my head. So I have my right speaker, which like I can see it, and then my left speaker is behind me. So I'm kind of listening like up and down.
You get a bit of depth that way, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm kind of listening like back and forth, and then I have to like go, you know, I'll check things separately, stuff like that. But I mean, I have a couple friends that I send, because I still don't have my system down for that perfectly. But so I have a couple friends I'll send my mixes to, just to ask them like, all right, did I screw up the stereo spread, or am I good? And they'll be like, oh yeah, it's good. Or like, oh no, it's too wide. I'll always do it too wide. I'll never make it like squashed mono, but they'll always be like, yeah, it's like too wide. I'm like, oh, okay. So it's still something that I'm learning, but because I gotta figure it out on my own, right? Because it's not like, I've never heard of anyone else that mixes that's deaf in one ear. So
no, that's definitely interesting. Yeah, like I said too, recently I've been just checking all my mixes in mono more than I used to in the past, because I always said, it's not that important, but really it is.
Yeah.
If you got your mix sounding dope in mono, then you know you don't got any phasing issues with your left and right guitars, or even your left and right overheads, or whatever the case may be, right?
Yeah, yep.
And then,
I don't know if you're into hip hop at all, but last year Kendrick, or not, maybe it was 2 years ago. It was 2 years ago. Kendrick put out "To Pimp a Butterfly," right, which was like the most amazing hip hop record of 2 years ago. And I can't remember who mixed it, but there was an article in, I think it was Fader or Rolling Stone. He did an article about how he mixed the record up until like the last point in mono, like completely in mono, on one like crappy Fostex like $50 speaker.
No, I've been hearing more and more people using that. I love my working in stereo, and I love messing with my stereo imaging more than I probably should be with some mixes. But
it's just interesting, you know, man. Like everyone's got their method to their madness. It's just like I used to be, you know, because when you go to Berkeley, you're learning like a way to do things. You're learning like the Berkeley way to do things. And so, you know, when I was like I'm still a student of music, but when I was a Berkeley student of music, I was always, if someone was doing something differently, I'd be like, what? Why are they doing it like that? You know? And then after a while, you just learn. It's like, okay, there's no wrong or right in music. It's what you think sounds good or what you think doesn't sound good. And literally anything after that is just hoopla, right? Like if you mix it all in stereo and someone else mixed it all in mono, and I think both of them sound good, then who cares how you got the end result, right?
Yeah, that's one thing that's great about music. There is really no rules. And it's fun breaking the so-called rules that people say are rules, right?
Absolutely, yeah. It's the best part.
Yeah. No, I find it's all about experimenting for the most part. Like that's why I always love experimenting. But at the same time, there is true and tried ways that have been proven successful over and over. But it's fun. Let's try it this way this time, right? Or
yeah, for sure.
Which makes things more fun, because you do get bored after a while if you record the same song with the same setup over and over. It's like, no, let's try this amp this time, or let's try that amp, and mix things up back and forth.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. That's why I have 10 snare drums.
Holy shit!
It's like, oh, this, you know, the same reason, you know. It's like, oh, well, this snare drum's worked on this song the last 10 times, but what about this snare drum? You know what I mean? Totally, it's the same.
Yeah, mix it up. So what's your go-to DAW? If you want to talk a little bit about software for a bit, that would be cool.
Oh yeah. So for like all through Berkeley, I was a Logic user, and then Pro Tools just like happened to me. I did the whole switch. I used to be a Logic and Final Cut guy, and then I switched to Pro Tools and Premiere. So I'm a Pro Tools guy now for like the past 2 years, and I have never looked anywhere else for another DAW since I switched, and nor will I ever. So for my recording rig, it's just Pro Tools. I have a MacBook Pro at my studio, and then I have it hooked up to the MacBook screen, and then I bought a new TV for my apartment, so I brought my old TV in here. So I have this obnoxiously large TV that I use as I kind of use it as my my music stand, because I when I mark parts in Pro Tools, just so as it's scrolling, like I can see it's like, oh, the 7/8 section's coming up, or oh, the part with the hits is coming up, because I mark everything in Pro Tools.
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah, so then that just runs into, I have 2 Motu 8 pre's, and then I have just all 16 channels of mics are all used up. So I've got like a kick in, kick out, hi-hat, set of overheads. I have a stereo set of rooms, and then I have a mono room in the back behind the kit. And then all my toms are mic'd up, snare, top, and bottom, ride. And yeah, that's all 16 of them. So
no, it's all about just utilizing what you have, man. And I know I soloed the room mics on the last few tracks you sent me, man, and I was thinking really impressive. I was kind of blown away, actually, because lately I've been utilizing the room mics and the overheads in my drum sound more than everything else, and just kind of using the kick and snare to reimburse that sound to get a more solid, cohesive sound.
Oh, really? Okay, cool. Yeah, they're Gauge microphones?
No.
So Gauge, you should check them out. So Gauge, what Gauge does is they take old Neumanns, and they just broken ones, and they repurpose them.
Oh, wow.
And they rehouse them. So basically, what you were listening to was what's called the Gauge ECM 87, which is a pair of broken U87s.
And are they, is that pair combined, or is it just 2 separate mics?
It's 2 separate mics, but that's like,
right.
Yeah, it's 2 mics. But so when you get them, I think like what's a U87 cost now? Like $3,700 or something ridiculous?
Yes.
Yeah, I think you can buy a pair of these not a pair. You can buy them for like one of them's like $400. But $800 or $3,700, like.
Oh, nice.
And I think they sound good. I think I want to do something with my room to make the room sound a little bit, because I'm in a studio space, but it still sounds a little wank to me. Like, there's a hole in the wall up here. It should probably patch up and stuff. So this studio is actually, it's only 2 blocks away from my house, but it works. It works. I've never had anyone be like, "Oh, your room sounds like garbage" or anything like that. So yeah, so I like it. And then at home, when I comp everything at home, I have a Mac Pro, the trash can, good old trash can, and then just like some KRKs. I think my left KRK speaker is finally starting to blow out, so I'm going to have to get a new monitor set soon. But and then just in terms of like plugins, I'm a big Slate fan. I got the virtual mix rack stuff. I don't know if you use any of that stuff, but it's amazing.
Yeah, I signed up for the Everything bundle there about 4 months ago and haven't turned back, man. Yeah, it's so organic sounding.
Oh, God, yeah. The FG compressors, the blue. Oh, yeah. All day.
Yeah, I just upgraded and got the new 2 preamps there that came out there last week or 2 weeks ago now. So I haven't really got to put them to the test yet, but I'm excited to use those, yeah.
Oh, nice, yeah. And then really like the Fab Filter, the Pro Q. Pro Q2 is great. I don't know if you've ever messed with Fab Filter before, but they're really awesome.
No, that's one I haven't tried there yet.
Oh, yeah, they're good. And then the API pack from Waves. Ooh, dude, the 2500 API compressor, just like, I put it on my snare and I'm just like, done. That's all I've ever used.
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan on my snare is the CLA 3A. I love that on my snare and my kick.
The CLA 3A, yep. Yep, that's a good one too.
And then I'll send my parallel drums to that also. And I tried living without it and tried replacing that with other compressors. And it just, I'm like, damn, I become reliant on that damn thing. But it's what the Wave stuff does is just insane too. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, it just needs to not be as good, and then I wouldn't be relying on it, right? It needs to be a little bit crappier, and then I would go to something else. No, I really like the I can't, it's the FG something, the blue one in the Slate. I really like, that's been my replacement for the API for a couple months, and then I did a mix a couple days ago, and I loaded up the 2500 again, and I was just like, oh yeah, this is home. This is where my snare drum likes to be.
Yeah. No, it's fun to experiment with new ones, but it's funny how you do after you go around full circle. Sometimes you will end up back where you started, right? And
yeah, well, I think it's just cool because then you can learn how other compressors work, and then you go back to your tried and true. You try a different thing on it, and you're just like, mainly to me, I think it speaks to the quality of the plugin, right? Because there's certain plugins, like some freeware plugins, where there's only like one or two settings on it that I can get where, to me, they sound good, right? But what a testament to the plugin where I can literally do whatever I want on it and it sounds good no matter what, right? Like,
yeah,
like those APIs, the CLA, right? All those sound amazing no matter what I do, which I think is pretty awesome.
No, they've done a good job at emulating the real deal, right? Because I've even gone and looked at price some of these things out, and it's like, wow, you know what I mean? You're not going to go drop $5,000 on a damn compressor when you got three that emulate it pretty goddamn well. When you check out some of the A and Bs they do on the shootouts, it's yeah.
Yeah. I don't have the money. I don't have money for that. $5,000 for one compressor.
I still like my analog gear, and I have a little bit of analog gear, which I usually record into, like running my vocals through analog preamp, compressor, and then I got a little bit of that already kind of where I want it even before I start pulling out the plugins. But and then sometimes when I'm mixing for clients too, I'll do the same thing. I'll be like, oh, this could use a little bit of that or a little bit of that in my analog rack, but then it's time consuming because you got to run it back through, print it back into the Pro Tools session too, right? And
yeah,
kind of messes with your workflow a little bit. But no, back to the Slate thing, the way he's emulating all his the analog gear is just insane. It's
the one thing that blew my mind that I think is just so valuable for freelance recording people is that virtual mix, the virtual microphone stuff that he's doing. Because I mean, holy crap, I can be like, when I record for a lot of people, there's like a, because it's all mostly, very rarely do I go into a studio with someone and record with them there, kind of overseeing what's happening. 95% of the time, it's me with my gear in my room, and then I send him something, and then we start the dialogue, right? But like, what an opportunity for someone to be like, oh, man, I really liked what you played, but I really wish you would have used a different microphone or like a warmer microphone. And then to just be able to like, oh, well, I have all these Slate mics, so let me just throw this mic on there without having to re-record anything or redo anything. Blows my mind. Literally the first time I saw that, I was just like, that makes my job not only easier, but better. Because then I can be like, oh, well, I don't own this mic that would sound great for this, song that I'm doing, but I have all these Slate mics now, and I can just emulate whatever I want. Like, oh, I don't have a U87 to throw on my kick drum, but I have the Slate condenser, and I really want that sound. So, boom, done. Client happy. Like,
right, you'll get something pretty close, eh? So are you using some of the Slate mics then with the package?
Oh, no, I'm going to buy it after the end of the summer. I decided I'm just going to it was between a new drum set and all of those mics, and I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to buy it all.
Oh, right on. Well, I know, now he's got the package with the 5 pencil mics, which is great for a kit, right?
Yeah, well, then that's the thing, right? Like, drum mics, having a lot of drum mics is not something you acquire overnight unless you have a lot of money.
Oh yeah, just to mic up a kit, you're looking at a couple G's easy. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. It's not I'm constantly buying mics. I'm constantly buying stuff, right? But it's not like I decided one day. It's like, you know what? I'm gonna buy gajillion dollars worth of mics, right? It's just, you're like, all right, well, I'm going to start with the basic Shure mic pack with a bunch of 57s. And then it's like, okay, 57s on toms aren't working for me. I'm going to buy, I think I have the Sennheiser, the E6. I always get the number wrong. One of them's the guitar mic and one of them's the tom mic. The E604 or the E609. I can't remember which one's mine.
I'm not
but
sure.
The one that's the tom mic is mine. And then it's like, oh, well, gotta get, oh, well, my hi-hat mic is lacking. It's just constant upgrading, man. It's hilarious. And the thing about it is I always try and say it's like, well, it's for work, right? But I also think I personally have an addiction to buying gear. You know what I mean? I think a lot of us do, right?
Oh yeah, I hear you there 100%.
It's like, oh, well, it's going to be used for work. But the real reason we're all buying all this stuff is like, yo, I really just like playing with new toys.
Yeah. No, I reached a point with plugins where it's okay, I'm just going to stop for a bit. And now it's like challenging not to buy a new one. And it sucks with the computer. The way they're advertising is like every time a new plugin comes out, it's instantly the ad that they target you with, right? So you're like, oh, look at this bad boy, right? And then you have to question, do you really need it? But you need what you need. But then there's a point after that where you're just indulging for yourself, but which is good too, right?
Well, and I also think too is you could be affecting your work without even knowing it, because you just get so infatuated. Like, if I were to, like, for example, I bought that hilarious Metallica signature snare drum, right? The Stanger drum, as my friends call it, the Saint Anger Metallica. Bing, pow, 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 pow. The Pang drum, right? And I was like, oh, this will be cool to use on metal stuff, right? And then and I was really into it at the time. And then I just I recorded some stuff with it. And then I took like a real hard consideration, and I was like, nah, this isn't going to work for this. But, because it was like my new toy, I was like, yeah, I'm going to use it on everything. But, I feel like sometimes we get clouded when we buy the new stuff, and we're just like, we got to use the new stuff because it's the best and it's going to be the greatest for everything. But sometimes there's nothing wrong with good old Pearl Steeferone snare drum that has proven to be wonderful on everything.
Yeah.
Right?
No, and sometimes having too many decisions slows down the workflow too, because you're like,
absolutely,
and you're just humming and hawing and switching back and forth. And
yeah, sometimes I think it's great to limit yourself. You'd be surprised at what you come up with when you're limited to just a certain amount of things, right? Like drummers talk about it all the time, where it's like, yo, just play with your, kick, hi-hat, and snare for a couple hours and see what you come up with, and then start adding things back in. But I think the same could go for microphones, right? Like, I watched a video the other day of this guy mic'd up his entire drum set with SM57s just to prove the point that you don't need, a gajillion dollars worth of mics to make your kit sound good if you really work at it, right?
Know what you have, and that's why it's good too. Like, use the basics to the best you can, and then
oh, absolutely, yeah.
And then once you get a good sound with that, everything else after is just going to be gravy, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, nailed it.
No, I think it's just all, like I said, it's to indulge ourselves sometimes a little, which is fun too, right? It's,
oh yeah, man, I love it.
Especially when you're working hard too, and then you kind of like, I'm gonna treat myself and buy a little something for the studio, this paycheck or whatever, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I've gotten really good at making excuses for myself about like, oh, well, you need this thing, James. You really need this thing, and then I'll just be like, I don't need this thing. I don't need it. And then I'm just like, yeah, hey, what do you know? I didn't need it after all. I didn't die. We're good. But I think gear is cool like that. There's always something coming out that changes the game, but you don't need all of them.
Yeah, you just go back to the 60s, right, when they're recording with 4 tracks. And mind you, they had some pretty badass mics back in the 60s, but and some pretty badass guitars too. But when you listen to some of those albums, they're just so thick and real. It's like, God damn.
Yeah. Well, there's a guy named Carter McLean. He's a drummer for Lion King in New York, and he plays with Charlie Hunter, who's an 8-string jazz guy. And he's really funny because I really enjoy the stuff that he posts, because he's like that, right? He has a website. I can't, 4 Hands Drumming, I think is what it's called. But he posts a lot of videos on Instagram, right? And And I watch him and I'm always like, man, your drums sound disgustingly good. Like, what are you doing over there? And he's always really adamant. He's like, if you're trying to do things for drums for like practicing, you should only have one mic on your drum kit, because that one mic is going to tell you exactly how you sound, right? The one mic's not going to lie to you. Whereas you start putting, mics on everything and you're like, oh, well, my snare drum's not loud enough. Well, it's like, well, duh, then just play the snare drum louder. You know what I mean? If you only have that one mic, you're going to actually be a better player after you listen to yourself and be like, oh, this is what's actually happening. Whereas if, you listen to a drum mix of something that you recorded for someone and everything's mic'd up and you're like, oh, turn my snare up a little bit. I didn't hit it hard enough.
Yeah.
So he's kind of going back into that, like the 60s, like one microphone. This is how your drums sound. Embrace how your drums actually sound, kind of thing. I think that's really cool.
And the player itself is the huge mark, right? Like, because I've heard stories before where guys have had their drum set up in a studio, but another band comes in and rather than swapping out, and the engineer's like, it was night and day, just because the one guy is paying attention to how hard he's hitting and all the little subtleties rather than just smashing the shit out of the kid or vice versa, right? And
no, you're so right. And I think that's like... yeah, but that can say that for every instrument too, right? Like,
yeah, guitar is a big one too, because you mic it up exactly the same the way another guy picks up the guitar, same guitar, and it's like all of a sudden you're going for the knobs, trying to dial shit in differently, right?
Yeah. I can't remember who it was. Like, it was an interview that I watched or something. I think it was the guitar player from Deftones. He posted all of his Axe Effects patches online. And someone was asking him, like, yo, why did you do that? Why'd you give everyone your patches? And he's like, they can have my patches. They still won't have my sound. They're not going to be able to, they can't play like me. And he's so right? Like, I could post up my entire drum set, my signal chain, my pedals, and everything online right now, and someone could emulate it perfectly. And I don't think they would sound like me, right? They would sound like them still, right? It's just like all the gear is just the extra sheen, like and every instrument, the sound is in our hands, right? Like, and
that's where the feel and the tone and the emotion comes from, and that's why it's slightly different. There's some people out there good at emulating like some of these cover bands, and they're doing it like precise, even with the little nuances, but I've never really got into that. Like, my theory's always been, well, in the time I could learn that cover song, I could write a song, right? So why go that route, right? And then I've always gotten off on having my own sound, and that's the same thing with presets. When I first started working on DAWs and stuff, I used to always like, this preset's great because he made it, right?
Yeah, I know you're right.
The presets, sometimes they make a good starting point, but they're just, that preset was used for something else that might not be the same as what you're working on now. Even now, myself, I create my own templates when I got a mix that's just slamming. It's like, yeah, this is perfect, man. So I'll save it as a template, and then I'll get another song and I'll drop it into that template, and it sounds like shit.
Yeah, you nailed that.
Sometimes it's a good way to get you off to the races a little quicker, right? But
yeah, I even tried, like I started making templates for things like that with, I'll have like my drum bus, my cymbal bus, my drum mix bus, parallel compression, snare plate, my drum room reverb, and then everything else kind of grouped. And then I'll just throw like my one reverb and stuff in there, so that way when I'm going into a mix session, I could throw it in, right? Like every person that mixes anything does. But I don't even save those sometimes, because I always find myself changing my reverbs and my parallel compression, like compressors and stuff, every mix for different things, just because one size doesn't fit all for me with that stuff. I don't know, maybe I'm in the minority with that, but I'm always like, the only template I have that I use is the one that I import in every session, which has my drum inputs going into the DAW. That's the only one that I've used from day one that has stuck with me, right? Because I always feel like I'm always changing reverbs and stuff.
Yeah, because setting up all your routing, that's time consuming, and that's going to be the same. Yeah. And I like having like my go-to plugins, but I'll usually just leave them at like basic default setting or whatever, right? And
you're
and
right.
then I always have a couple, so I can just turn one off and another one on. Those little things do speed up time, but you'd like I always thought, oh, that once you got the ultimate template, it'll solve all your problems. And unless the song is like in a similar key, similar BPM, right? Like with drums, for example, like I've done quite a few albums over the years, but I've never had the option to have the same drummer record the drums with the same sound throughout the whole album.
Oh, gosh.
It's always like, yeah, we're recording this drummer on this day over in this room and then this drummer here. Right?
That sounds like a nightmare, man. Holy cow.
But so every song becomes quite distinctly different, but I think it would be cool, like have a drummer do the whole album in one room, you know what I mean, with the same drum kit, and then it would give the album kind of a cohesive, glued together kind of feeling, right?
Yeah. What a concept that is.
But then that would also, then you could almost get away with using a similar template on those drums for the whole album, right? But still each song.
Yeah, I mean I'm doing a couple albums right now, and that's what I've got going on. I've changed a few things, but basically kept it very similar. But yeah, that I just feel like from album to album, I'll do things and I'll be like, oh, well, that sounded great on this record, and then I'll throw it on the next record, and I'm like, nope, not gonna happen today. Start from scratch.
Well, it's definitely a rabbit hole you can go down both ways. It's exciting. So let's talk a little bit about what your future plans are here for your music career and like bands, etc.
Yeah. So right now I'm. Right after I get off the phone with you, actually, I gotta finish this. I'm doing a 25-song death metal album for this Boston band called Kill All Humans. Best name ever, I think. I think it's super metal. So that's been really fun. Lots of really fast stuff happening. I think there was one song that was like 280. So my legs are looking forward to this vacation very much. And then that jazz album that I spoke about earlier, that dude's actually flying up tomorrow. We're going to do a show on Friday in Boston with my other band, Aviations. And then after that, I'm actually off for a month. It's the first real vacation I've ever taken since I've been out of school. So that will be pretty cool. And then I've actually got, I come back from that vacation. Well, I'm doing some shows in between that vacation, but, so I'm doing a couple shows with this band called Black Trip. We're actually opening for Oakley Dokley, which is that Ned Flanders, like, parody band.
I'm not sure if I'm familiar with that. I'll have to look that up.
You know Ned Flanders from Simpsons, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a band where all the dudes dress up as Ned Flanders and they play, like, hardcore metal songs.
Oh, that's funny.
Like, based off of the character. Hilarious.
They singing like him too?
What's that?
They sing him like him too, like Emily's voice?
Oh yeah. It's great. So we're doing a show with them, and then I'm doing a couple other sub dates for some other bands in town, and then August I'm just going to be recording this record. I think I'm doing all of the Kill All Human stuff, so we'll start bass in August when I get back, and then still working through the Aviations record. Yeah, and then I start teaching again in September, and then who knows, man. The thing is I always try and think about like future plans to like go home and see the folks, or like go on vacation, or like go play video games for a night. And always something comes up. Like it's like, oh yeah, this weekend I'm gonna go do this thing, and it's like I'll get a call and be like, yo, I need you to do this gig or this record by next week. And it's like, all right, well, guess I'm not going to go to the arcade this weekend. So I always just like, there's always things coming up, right?
The music just consumes you, yeah.
But I'm pretty excited for like this little break I have coming up, but it's going to be, it's a hard road to the finish, right? So I got like 7 more songs to do here. And then I'm working on this album right now too, with this band called Brotherhood of Grace. They're a band from Boston too. And the cool thing about them is the kids are, 13 and 16, and they just like shred like a lot. Like they shred a lot. So we've been working on a record for like a year. That's pretty much done. We're going to send it out for mastering in a couple of weeks, I think. And then that will be coming out probably in like September or something. So that will be really cool. Those kids are like disgustingly good at their instruments for their age. So that's been really fun. there's a couple more records that I played on that aren't out yet. Those are out of my control. So lots of fun stuff.
No, that's an insane amount of workload, man. Yeah. And the fact that you're enjoying yourself through the whole process is inspiring too.
Yeah. Well, it's just, it's not like it's really weird, man. Like, it's because, like my big dude that I really look up to right now is Ash Sohn. Are you familiar with him?
No.
Oh, dude, disgusting drummer. He played on Adele's record. He played with James Morrison. Plays with a lot of like R&B guys, and he's just like, he's talking about like how he's a really big session drummer, to the point where he has on his property in London, he had this dude come build him a windmill, and at the base of the windmill he has his drum room and like his studio, and that's like where he records drums all day.
Right.
And that's like disgustingly awesome. Yeah, so he same kind of talk where it's just like, I just I was doing one session, and then I did another session, and then I did another session, and now I'm busy. So it's kind of just like, it kind of all just like piles into one, right? I mean, same kind of thing where it's just like, oh yeah, I have this job, and now I have this other job, and now I have this other job, and then I ended up with 17 jobs at the same time. Whoops.
Yeah, and I find if you do a good job at all of them, then that snowball effect can almost sometimes get out of hand, right?
Yeah.
So do you ever turn down work?
What's that?
Do you ever have to turn down work?
That's what I was just going to say. I was going to say, the first, like, the real catch when when you're doing something good and you can't, you literally can't take on any more work is when you have to say no to things. Like, that's... To me, the first time I did that, I was like, that's pretty cool. I'm too busy, or, like, this isn't within, like, my, like, budget to be able to, like, do it. Like, that's pretty cool. I thought it was kind of cool just to be like, yeah, I'm, like, too busy to be able to do this thing. Like, wow.
Well, that's when you can start increasing your prices, too, right? And then that...
Yeah, well, not, yeah, but, like, also, it's just like, man, that's cool that I'm too busy. I'm in demand. Like, what is that? What does that mean?
Yeah, it means you're a success, man. You're succeeding at what you want to do, which is great, because not a lot of people in life get to say that, right?
Yeah, right. Like, I think it's cool, and I've been saying no to a lot of things lately, but that's literally just because I wish maybe in the future we can all move to a planet that has like a 50-hour day. It'd be pretty awesome. Because then I could say yes to everything. Because it's not that I enjoy saying no to things. Although the first time I did think it was cool, because it's like, oh man, I'm busy. Like, I can't actually do this thing. But it's not that I'm like, no, I'm not going to do this job for you because I am blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
I would love to be able to do everything, right? But there's just not enough hours in the day. Can only drink so many Red Bulls before I will literally collapse, right?
Yeah, everyone needs to have a nap here at least once a day.
Yeah, right. I actually took a nap last night I got back from tracking, and I knew I had to go in that night and track some more. And I accidentally fell asleep with my contacts on, so my eye is just like totally jacked up right now. It's like all red and gross, and I'm just like, well, that was a mistake. So maybe I just need like solid nights of sleep, especially this is a little bit of a tangent, but just like, because musicians work hilarious hours sometimes and irregular sleep schedules, I've just been finding out that like eating healthy is literally the best thing you can do for your body when you are treating your body like garbage in every other respect, right?
Yeah, no, it's important, man. It's super important. Like the whole like living off of coffee and Red Bull there, you'll crash twice as hard when it's time to crash, right? And then you feel nausea.
Yeah, dude. I discovered that Soylent is really good. I don't know if you know what Soylent is, but I'll just drink a Soylent and then I won't feel like garbage. So like just little like cheap ways that like help me do my job as best I can.
Yeah, because you need a lot of energy to perform properly too, right? That's the thing too. Right? And same with your memory and all that stuff is coming from the mind. And if the mind's run down, your performance level is going to drop.
Yeah, you're right. Yep. So then I just been getting really into like cooking gourmet meals that I can just like pocket in my backpack and then bring to the studio and then eat and then continue to work without having to like, go down the street, get like a crappy piece of pizza, and then feel like garbage.
It plays a big role in everything we do, for sure.
Yeah, right. Well, I just recently learned this because I've pretty much eaten like garbage for a long time, and I've always been like, oh God, I feel like crap. Why do I feel like crap? And I always just attribute it to, oh, I'm playing a lot of drums a day. And then I started eating a lot better, and then I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm at the 10-hour mark and I don't feel like garbage. This is awesome.
Yeah, to stay strong, you gotta eat properly and make sure you recharge the batteries whenever you can, man.
Yeah, man. But it's all part of the fun, right? I feel like the music part comes easy, right? At least like to me, it's all the other things that I struggle with, like sleeping regularly and making sure I'm eating healthy. Like the drumming, like that's the easy part, right? Like it's all the actual like life things that are hilariously more difficult than I would estimate. Maybe it's because I still don't think I'm an adult.
Yeah, you're still pretty young too. I noticed once I got into my 30s, that's when I started eating more healthy and I quit partying as much as I used to, and now I just turned 40, so now I'm even thinking more health oriented and long term, right? And but it took me a long time, and same with a lot of my friends I know, right? Like in the 20s, man, it's amazing. Some of us even live to our 30s, right?
Yeah.
But you do slowly grow up. It's not that you ever want to or have to, but
yeah, no beers before tracking for me. I'll just like shut down. But that's awesome, man.
So any advice you'd have to give to any young and upcoming musicians, wannabe freelancers?
Yeah, definitely just like keep at it. I mean, consistency is key, and like try and be as open-minded as possible, right? Like you never know what kind of gigs you'll get when you just say yes to things you might not be comfortable with, right? Like, and you might end up, it's okay to take a gig that you don't think you might like, because at least you'll have tried it and you'll learn something from it that you'll, be able to look back on and, draw from for your next gig, right?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that.
Consistency and open mind is like the two most important things for this career, I think, like no doubt.
Yeah, sticking with it's huge.
Yeah, and just like, I don't know, man, just like be a good hang, right? Like no one likes to work with jerks, like that's like the biggest key, like, because we're going to record with each other, we're going to rehearse, we're going to be in a band, we're going to, we're going to write music. Like think about all the downtime that happens in between all that, like you're going to be in a van with people, you're going to, you're going to have to go get lunch with people in between studio breaks and stuff. Like you're not just going to talk about music, while you're on all these breaks and stuff, like just be a good hang, just like don't be a drag.
Yeah, stay positive and make sure you keep your ego in check. Shit like that's important, man.
Yeah.
And it's why a lot of bands do fall apart because of that poor attitude.
Yeah. I always like talking about other things other than music when we're not working on music, right? Just because like I like I like making a lot of jokes when I'm in the studio and just like keeping it really light. Like even when I know like I've done a lot of overnight sessions where it's going to be rough, but there's no reason to get all mopey about it. It's like, yeah, like it sucks. It's an overnight, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. session. Like of course it's going to be brutal, but nothing you can do about it. So you might as well just have a good time and think it's hilarious because
Yeah, no, laughter is definitely one of our best gifts we get if you can pass a laugh on and just keep everyone smiling, that's huge, man.
Yeah. And it makes everything, if everyone, everyone working around you doesn't feel any pressure, any stress, like that's good, like I feel like I'm really good under stress, but I always like to, when I know that there's a lot of stress, I enjoy trying to diffuse it as much as possible in a work environment and be able to be like, all right, guys, let's do the thing, you know? Like,
No, I think a positive attitude and everyone being happy reflects in the work too. Because even myself, sometimes I'm forcing me to finish a part, and then I listen to it a couple days later, and you can almost hear that it's been forced. Or
absolutely, yeah.
not flowing with that natural go, right? Even when you're writing too, sometimes you're just like, oh, I need to put a part here, and so you just force something in. And if you're in a shitty mood when you did that, it actually reflects.
Yeah. Well, it's all about like I go through phases like that too, you know, where it's just like, I feel like musicians have these insane emotional highs and lows when it comes to just like their work, right? Because, you know, you might get 10 gigs in a week, but that one gig you didn't get is going to be the one that just like nags at you all week, right? And you're just going to be like, oh, what the hell? Why didn't I get that gig, right? So you might be riding like this plane of just like, oh my God, my life sucks. I didn't get that one gig. Da, 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 da. And you forget the whole time you're complaining, you're working on 10 other things, right? Or like, and it can be said the other way around, right? You could miss 10 gigs, but you get that one gig and you're like, I'm on top of the world, right? There's like a very big mental aspect to this career, right? That's just like, because, you know, like you were saying earlier, it's like you got to constantly be looking for work, and that can be like ridiculously stressful sometimes, right? Because sometimes you don't know when the next paycheck's coming. You don't know, you know, so, you know, when you're just starting out, you don't know you're gonna have to go eat McDonald's McDoubles for the next like week. You know, like what am I gonna do for money?
Yeah, no, I was talking with the last guy I interviewed there, my buddy Phil, and he's very well established, and he's still constantly pitching and pitching and pitching.
Yeah.
And I've been pitching my ass off for the last year or two at different things, voiceover, session, et cetera, et cetera. And sometimes you don't even hear thanks but no thanks, and that's kind of rough on you. You're like, fuck, I fucking put all that work in, and they don't even fucking appreciate it.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you get, oh, thanks but no thanks, which is better than not getting that, and then you do land that job, and you're like, yeah. So those 10 pitches all of a sudden became worth the extra effort.
Yep.
And like we were saying back on that episode, was that does help your skill set too, and your mindset a little bit, right? Because now you just practiced your ass off, went through the motions of auditioning for this job and that job, right? And but it's all part of the game. And then eventually you do reach a point where you don't have to pitch as much. But going back to tips for up and comers who want to break into this business, it's you better be prepared to be able to pitch your ass off and don't get hurt when you do get shot down. Eh?
Yeah. Well, I think with pitching, that you brought up a really good point. Is like my dad is like he's like a formal business guy, right? So my whole spiel on, you know, like applying for positions and stuff is very formal, just because, like, you know, my dad, I got a resume through, you know, I had to make a resume through a class at Berkeley, but my dad was like, I need to look over your resume. Like, you know, and you always make sure everything's like, you know, because I've looked at people's resumes for, you know, things I got going on. And it's just like, as soon as I see a punctuation error or something like labeled incorrectly, I'm like, nope, you know. Because, you know, like you're pitching yourself to someone, the first thing they see is like that email, right? So if like that email's not like, you know, it doesn't have all your information in it, there's misspellings, there's like grammar errors and stuff, dude, it's going in the trash immediately, right?
Like, you got to watch the things, even before they get to listen to you and your skills. It's that first impression, eh?
Yeah, oh, totally. Like, I always just like triple check that stuff. And I mean, I have like, the reason I have like a website, right? And that's kind of like my resume at this point, right? Because I like to keep the resume to like one sheet, right? Because you don't want to like over clutter it with like a bunch of little, you know, things and stuff like that. But I would say that like up and coming people, man, just like make sure you have all your eggs in a basket, right? Because you don't want to, you know, you don't want to like take a job and then like, you know, run back, do the thing, and then run back, give it to them, and then find out they need something else, and you're like, well, oh crap, I don't know how to do that, or oh, I don't have that, you know, that piece of gear that they need for me to do this job. So then you're running back to go do that, and then you're coming back, you know. It's just like a crazy cat and mouse game. You're always like running around. But I would just say like that first impression, you know, like handshakes, eye contact, like smile, all that stuff goes such a long way to like just going to be like, oh, okay, this person's a chill hang and they can play drums, or oh, they can do this thing. Awesome. In the bag, right? Like,
No, good advice, man. Good advice. Because it's we all learn as we go, but the sooner you can kind of get your mind around these small details that are somewhat important when it comes to the bigger picture, man.
Yeah. Oh,
In
yeah.
the long run, yeah.
Like totally. Like for me, like already, I'm only 23, but I'm way more interested in people that are like cool to hang out with than if they can shred. I'm way more interested to be like, all right, cool. Like you can play your instrument really well, and you're really talented, but can you play Mortal Kombat with me after rehearsal? Like,
Yeah.
you know, like, do you want to go to the bar and drink beer with me after rehearsal, or are you going to go home and not do that? Because I want people that can hang out with me and like be a goofball, you know, like, and you know, just like,
Yeah, no, it's deeper than the music.
our career is hilarious and ridiculous. Like we're playing music for money. Like it's already cool enough, you know, like you don't need to be uptight. You don't need to be a Debbie Downer. Like playing music for money, like it's crazy and it's awesome. So lighten up a little, you know.
For 23 years old, dude, you got your shit going on.
Well,
so
thanks,
let's just
man.
Put it that way, man.
Yeah, you know. Well, I turned 24 in holy shit. Wait. Oh, it's the 19th. In 2 months I turned 24. So
No, man, you're a huge step ahead of the game, James. Like, you just keep doing what you're doing, and you're going to go places. You've already obviously gone places, but you're so young, man. Your future is huge.
well, thank you.
No, thank you, man. It was an honor to have you on the show, and I think this interview is going to make for a great episode, and I'll definitely keep in touch with you in the future. So a huge thanks to you, James. A huge thanks to all you listeners who have made it this far in the show. And if anyone has any ideas for future and upcoming episodes, please feel free to contact me. If anyone wants to share their story on the show, please feel free to contact me. You can reach me at UnderGunnedProductions.com. Yeah, so until next time, I'm going to end this episode with a little track called Filthy Cup from the upcoming Dual Dynasty album. We got James on drums on this track, and he brought his A game like he always does. Cheers, y'all.
Hey yo, you never know when it's your turn to go. So light a bowl and save your soul. All I want out of life is a little more time. All I need on a night like tonight is to feel alright, yeah. So rock it cool, you're feeling cool. Take me back and slam me down. Roll the blunts and fire it up. Puff, puff and pass it around. Everybody wants
You're listening to the UnderGunned Productions Podcast.